Hey everybody, today I'll be taking a look at Metropolis, which is an original take on an auction game where players are constructing skyscrapers. Every player will get 13 buildings numbered from 1 to 13. 1 to 5 are small, 6 to 9 are medium, and 10 to 13 are large buildings, as you can see. So that's what every player gets. And every player also gets 2 secret mission cards, which I'll come back to later. First I'm gonna show how the game is played. This is the board setup for a 4-player game. As you can see, there's a central district, this is a river, the central district, and there are 4 districts to the side also by this river. This is a district, this is one, and this is one, and this is one. In a 4-player game you use the whole board. With 3 you cover up 1 district, and with 2 you cover up 2 side districts. So you always play with the center one, and depending on the number of players. There are also these chips which you put out randomly. These are metro chips, which mean there's a metro station there. They are +1 victory point. There are trendy chips, which means there's a trendy neighborhood worth 3 points, and this means there's an archaeological site. So when you build a skyscraper there and destroy a site, you get -1 point. So these can be put out randomly, or there's a setup in the rulebook which you can follow. There are also some suggestions on the Geek, and then we can play. So like I said, there are 2 hidden objective tiles, but I'll come back to those later. I'm just going to show you how it's played. It's really easy. Let's say player 1 puts a 1 building over here. That means he just, I'll zoom in a bit, has made a bit of 1 on that district, the yellow district. Now the next player, if he wants to bid, he has to bid higher, and he has to can only bid on a region that's adjacent to that one. So he can only go here because there's a bridge over the water, here, here, or here. So he has to make a bid. So he'll make a bid of 6, for example, for this green neighborhood with the metro station. Next player is red. He can bid 8 over here, for example. 4th player white. He will bid 12 on this trendy neighborhood. So let's say next player passes. Every player can still go higher because they all have a 13. But let's say they all pass. Then he wins. All the other buildings go back to the players who bid them, and the winner gets built. So you turn around, and now he gets the chip, and this is his district. He has built a skyscraper there. He can start the next round, and he can go wherever he wants. So he can, let's say he starts the bidding with a 5 over here on this region, and again next player can bid a 9, and bidding again continues. Let's say an 11, everybody passes, then it's get built, and now that player gray can start. So every time the player who won the bid starts, and you can only bid on adjacent regions. And that's basically how the game plays. You play until one player loses all his buildings. Now this can be very interesting because since you can only build adjacent, let's say something like this, then you would get that. Let's say something like this has happened. Let's say red built this, he won, he built this building. Red can start, he can just take his 1 and build here, and he will win because there's nothing adjacent. This is the river, and there's no bridge, so you can just take the territory. So this can be really interesting. At the end of the game you will have it's possible that suddenly there are a lot of these spots where you can't bid on because they have no open regions adjacent to them. So suddenly a player, it's possible that he plays 3 or 4 buildings on his turn and the game is suddenly over. If you're still left with 5-6 buildings, that's just tough luck, also bad play. So you have to be careful for that. Okay, so I mentioned before the game starts, every player gets two secret objectives. First, they get one of these gray ones. The gray ones give you 2 points every time you build a building in a region of that color. So this one, for example, is 2 points for every building in a green region you have built. So as you can see, this is a green region, this is a green region. So every time you build a building there, at the end of the game, 2 points. And these are the same for red, yellow, blue and brown. So every player gets one of those, and every player gets one of these. This one gives 5 points every time you build 3 buildings around a lake. So these are 2 lakes that you can see. So every time you get 3 buildings surrounding around the lake, 5 points every time you pull that off. This one is 7 points every time you build 3 around a fountain. Fountains are like this, so, and here. They're also all over the board. Next, we have 4 points when you build 3 adjacent ones, and as you can see, this one is in another district as these two. That doesn't matter. They can be in different districts, just as if the 3 of them are adjacent. You get 4 points every time you pull that off. This one, 4 points every time you build 2 buildings at each side of a bridge. So I showed you there are these bridges around. There are bridges on the river that goes around every district. So every time you build 2 buildings at each side of a bridge, 4 points. This one gives 4 points every time you build 3 buildings in one district. And that's it. That's all the hidden objectives. There are also 2 extra cards I didn't mention yet. So every time you build on a spot that has one of these metro chips, that's worth 1 point. But also, if this gives you the most metro chips at that time, you get this metro card, which is 3 extra points at the end of the game. There's just 1 card and it goes around. This actually just means the player with the most metro chips at the end of the game gets this card. And in case of a tie, it's the person who had that amount first. So if you have 5 chips and there's already another player who had 5, he keeps the card. But if you get your 6th chip and nobody else has 6, you get this card. And the owner of this card at the end of the game gets the 3 points. And there's also this card, so I also mentioned these. These are -1 archaeological sites if you build there. And this card also goes around, but it doesn't matter if you have most. It goes just every time changes player. So every time a player takes one of these chips, he also gets this card. So only the player who took the last chip gets stuck with this card at the end of the game, which is another -2. You also get this very handy scorecard overview. Whereas also one thing I didn't mention, so at the end of the game you will also evaluate which player has the highest building in every district. So let's say you are the only one with a level 3 tower, so a large building, then you immediately get this chip for that district. In case of a tie, let's say both players have 2 of these large ones, then we will look who has the most medium sized. So let's say white has 1 medium and red doesn't, and he gets the chip. So the number doesn't count, it's the size of the building. So the player with the highest building or the most high for every district, like I said there are 5 districts, gets one of these chips for tallest building, and it's also 5 extra points. And that's everything. So at the end of game scoring, although maybe it's gotten a little complex, it isn't that hard. You get 5 for tallest building chips, 5 points. You get 3 points for every trendy neighborhood chip you took. You get 1 point for every metro chip, plus 1 player will get the 3 bonus for most. You get -1 for every archaeological site chip, and -2 if you took the last one. You get 2 for your gray hidden objective, so that's just the color of the region, and you get 4 to 7 every time you complete your other secret mission, and the 4 or 7 depends on which you took, and that's final scoring. And that's how you play Metropolis. There's also a family-friendly variant included in the box, which is at the back of this nice cardboard score overview. There's no longer a tallest building, just for the trendy metro and archaeological chips and the 2 cards, and 3 for your hidden objective. In the family version you only get 1 objective, and they are easier. It's just 3 points every time you build near a lake, 3 points every time you build near a bridge, 3 points every time you build near the edge of the board or the edge of the city, 3 points every time you build near a fountain. So those are the family objective for an easier game. I really don't recommend playing this way. It's not that hard of a game. Even with this, as you saw, play goes really easy. It's just bidding, but you have the added factor that you have to bid on an adjacent region, which makes a really tight game, because you try to build the line of buildings that are bidding to a certain spot that you want, but you have to be careful. Maybe you put only a building worth 5 on a spot with the -1, and everybody will pass, and you think, just with my 5 building you're giving me the spot, but you're stuck with the -1, and maybe nobody is interested in any adjacent spots to that bid, and then you're stuck with it. So you have to be really careful on what you bid, because it may surprise you how suddenly everybody passes. It can be a good strategy to wait a while and keep your tall buildings so you get more power, but like I said, you must be careful because the game can suddenly be over. I think the game is really interesting. There's a lot to look for. So you have your hidden goals, which you don't know, of course. Let's make them hidden. But you have to work to that. You try to get some. You might take a region just for these trendy chips, which are 3 points. The metro points and the card are also nice. Be careful for this -1 and -2 at the end, which can hurt. You also are looking to spread your tall building, so in preference you win tallest building in 2 of the 5 regions. That would be best in a 4-player game, that you have 2 and the other 3 only 1. So that's something to look out for. It really just makes a very interesting game. The hidden objectives, there are some complaints, they aren't balanced, I'd say. Just this one, getting 3 in a region, is too easy. That one really stands out, so I just play without it. You still have 4 left, so 3 adjacent, 3 around the fountain, 3 to a lake, and 2 on each side of a bridge, and I just play with those 4. That fixes the problem for me. I think those are pretty balanced. They require different strategies. Sometimes you want to keep your objective hidden, but soon players will find out, and then you try to block each other objectives while gaining your own. You still have your color hidden, and you can win this game. That's what makes it interesting, by practically ignoring this secret mission. Just getting a lot of these, getting the metros, getting the tallest buildings, a lot of ships also gets you a lot of points. You can't completely ignore it, but you shouldn't focus too hard on it. These things also give a lot of points, so that makes it interesting. I think this is a great game, really underestimated. So some minus points are, like I said, these that would be unbalanced, but I don't really think so. Another complaint is the board. Players complain that it's really ugly and not attractive to play on. Now, me personally, I don't have any problem with it, but I have had some reactions when I pulled out a board that other people said, damn, that's an ugly board, but in the end they really enjoyed the game. So I don't think it detracts from play. It's just sometimes harder to convince people to play it because it's not that an attractive board. Like I said, some people really hate it and think it's really ugly. I have no real problem with it, but I'm not that bothered by aesthetics. So my thoughts on Metropolis: really great bidding game, original. It's very deep for what it is. There are many options, interesting choices. It plays really quick, and like I showed you, playing is just really easy. Just putting out the building next to where the previous building was, and you have to bid higher, so everybody understands it, but it brings a lot of depth for such an easy mechanic. So that's why I really like this one. Thank you for watching.